House of EdTech, episode 70.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jenna Klein from Class Dojo, and you're listening to the House of EdTech podcast with Chris Nesi.
Support for this episode of House of EdTech comes from summerpd.com. Expand your knowledge of Google Classroom and apps, formative assessments, and much more. They offer 10 courses, and you can get all of them for just $25 by using the coupon code HouseofEdTech. Sign up now to access the courses for professional development on your schedule. And thank you to summerpd.com for your support.
Welcome to the House of EdTech podcast. I am your host, Christopher Nesi. And the House of EdTech explores how technology is changing the way teachers teach and the impact that technology is having in education. My objectives include discussing technology that is changing our classrooms and schools and sharing tools and tips that you can hear about today and use tomorrow. I talk to teachers, leaders, and creators just like you and have them share their stories. The purpose? Whether you use it or not, technology is changing the way we teach and how our students learn.
And welcome back inside the House of EdTech. This is, I guess, sort of a milestone episode. This is episode 70. My gosh, from January 2014 to now, thank you for coming on this journey. And if this is the first time you're listening to the podcast, hey, there's no better time to get on. Well, it would have been great if you were here in 2014, but thank you for coming on board now, and I look forward to having you a part of the community for quite a long time. Coming up in this episode, we have all the great segments. We have an awesome EdTech thought where I'm going to ask you the question, are you a learning leader? We have the EdTech recommendation and a special shout out to Monica Burns from ClassTechTips.com. She is going to be sharing with you 5 apps that you can use with Google Cardboard. Google Cardboard is Google's virtual reality device hardware. Physically, you could put your device in it, and that's going to fit in great with the theme of today's show, which is augmented reality with Katie Ann Wilson, who is the augmented reality guru. And of course, no episode of this show is complete without the House of EdTech VIP. And just a few things here at the top of the show. We have a little bit of audio feedback. Well, we have one clip to play, and thank you to Derek Larson, who has a little bit of feedback for episode 68, where Stacy Lindis was the guest and the co-host. So let's fire up the old answering machine.
You have one new message.
Okay, folks, I'm a really bad friend. I just barely listened to August 27th episode of House of EdTech with the amazing Iron Tech guest hosting and guest talking and such. Phenomenal show. Absolutely loved it. I thought you guys did a great job. I love the sketchnoting. And yes, Stacy, you are a guru. Maybe not the same level as Mike. I agree. I think Mike Rohde is probably he's the godfather, of the sketchnoting. But your work's pretty amazing. And I feel bad it took me so long to listen. So, excellent episode, as always. Excellent. Nicely done.
Hey, thank you, Derek, for the great feedback. I really appreciate you, 1, listening to the episode, and 2, taking time to send in the feedback and your thoughts. And I know Stacy will hear this, and maybe you guys could have a little chat on Voxer or Twitter or in the comments for this episode or even on episode number 68. Now, I also, it's been a long day as I record this. So I just want to remind you, if you ever have an EdTech question that you'd like me to address here on the podcast, send me a tweet, use the hashtag House of EdTech, or you can Vox me. My username is Mr. Nesi, and I'd love to have you ask me questions. That'll help me generate topics. And I always say that, we are the House of EdTech community. I thank a lot of you, or I think I thank you, on Twitter, which, oh, by the way, please let me know that you listen to the show by sending me a tweet, because then I have this list, and I like to do follow Fridays for you who subscribe to the show and listen and support the content that I am creating. So make sure you do connect on Twitter. If you're following me, let me know you listen to the podcast. I'd really appreciate it. And I'd love to let people know that you listen, because I don't think it's embarrassing if you listen to this podcast. Also, I guess if this was a newspaper, this would kind of be like a retraction. So this is an apology. So I need to apologize for the second recommendation that I gave out in the last episode number 69 with Justin Schleiter. The second recommendation I talked about doesn't exist anymore, which was to allow you, when you published your Google Docs as a web page, that this would format them. The extension doesn't exist anymore. So I only found this out after I published the episode. So majority of you got the episode, and I'm not going to go back and take that out. So I do apologize that the second recommendation doesn't exist. But on the bright side, we now have the ability to format actual columns in Google Docs. So that's got to be worth something.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you this special announcement.
That's right, everybody. The 2016 House of EdTech Smackdown is coming. December 18th, 2016, episode number 76. Now, I know for the most part, the school year has just started, but when you put out a podcast every 2 weeks, the end of the year creeps up on you pretty quick. So I am pleased to announce the third annual House of EdTech Smackdown. If you're new to the podcast, my last episode of the calendar year is an episode where you're the star and you get to share your favorite tech tip, app, extension, hack, etc. Now, I only have one rule. No repeats, meaning nothing from the previous iterations of the Smackdown. So please, a little bit of homework, go back and check episodes 26 and 51. The complete list of both of those episodes can be found on their show notes pages. So that's chrisnessy.com/26 and chrisnessy.com/51. Submissions are going to be accepted until December 1st, 2016, and you can submit those via Voxer, chrisnessy.com/feedback, or the House of EdTech feedback hotline, and that number, as always, is 732-903-4869. Be sure when you leave me this audio that you tell me who you are, your website, your Twitter, basically anything about you, if you represent it, a company, your school district, however you want to brand yourself. If you go back and listen to those other two iterations of this Smackdown, you will definitely hear how people do it. And I would love to just fill the episode up and have a plethora. I mean, I think we had 26 and we had more than 26 last year. So let's shoot for, I don't know, let's say 50 or 60. So get me those recommendations and on with the show. And check out this episode's EdTech Thought. So for this episode's EdTech Thought, I'm going to ask you a question. And then I'm going to follow this question with a lot of other questions. So here we go. Are you a learning leader? Whether you're a teacher or an administrator, I hope you're the type of education professional that desires to continue learning and growing. Are you the type of person who has a growth mindset? Are you continuously stretching yourself within this profession? I'd be willing to bet that if you're closed-minded as a person, you're not going to be open-minded on your job. So with that, these are the 4 characteristics that a learning leader embodies. Number 1, the ability to deal with ambiguity. Number 2, the capacity to foster engagement. Number 3, the capacity to learn. And number 4, the ability to use open systems of thinking. So let's go back. Dealing with ambiguity. Now here are the questions. Do you have a low need for control? Do you have superior project management skills? Are you optimistic? I want you to be thinking about these questions to determine, again, are you a learning leader? Whether you're a teacher or administrator. For fostering engagement, do you motivate others, whether it's colleagues, your students? How are your interpersonal skills? Do you have the ability to empathize with others? Let's talk about, again, that capacity to learn. Are you current in your content area and your profession? Do you know what's going on? You don't want to be that doctor who still uses leeches, right? Do you foster collaboration with others? Whether it's you, your students to students, or if you're a principal or a superintendent, do you foster that collaborative environment for your employees and your colleagues? Do you not only have access to, but do you utilize the networks available to you? That could be Twitter, that could be Voxer, could be an email list, could be conferences you attend. And that last point, the ability to use open systems of thinking. Can you work with a team? Are you reflective? Now, I don't know if I've said it here on the podcast before, but I believe that the effective teacher is the reflective teacher. And I'll say that again. The effective teacher is the reflective teacher. And the last question I have for you, can you participate in democratic decision-making? Are you fair? So I snuck another question in there. I like to think of myself as a learning leader. I'm not perfect. I don't think you're going to be perfect either. But do we strive to be this learning leader? I'd love to know your thoughts. You can share them in the comments for this episode at chrisnessy.com/70 or through Voxer, SpeakPipe, or the feedback hotline, again, 732-903-4869. And that's my EdTech thought. And now it's time for this episode's EdTech recommendation. And again, I'd like to welcome in special guest Monica Burns from ClassTechTips.com. Monica blogged about this topic for Google Cardboard back in the summer, and she was kind enough to record the audio for me here on the House of EdTech. So, take it away, Monica.
Hello, this is Monica Burns, EdTech and Curriculum Consultant, founder of ClassTechTips.com, and author of Deeper Learning with QR Codes, a scannable solution for your classroom. Here's my post, 5 apps to use with Google Cardboard, published this summer on ClassTechTips.com. Have you tried Google Cardboard in your classroom? This super inexpensive, under $10 tool lets students explore virtual reality straight from your classroom. I'm a huge fan of Google Cardboard virtual reality experiences. You can take your students on virtual field trips, help them understand life in different parts of the world, and push students to ask questions about the world around them. When virtual reality first came on the stage a few years ago, it seemed like the cost would make it impossible for teachers to use it as a learning tool. The combination of a Google Cardboard viewer and a mobile device makes this the perfect choice for classroom teachers. The handful of quality apps mentioned below are great choices for teachers looking to combine the super inexpensive Google Cardboard with apps developed for both iPhones and Android devices. Here are 5 apps to use with Google Cardboard. UVisit takes students on virtual college tours. A virtual reality college tour is a great choice for students who might not be able to visit the number of colleges they plan on applying to in the future. Whether the cost of traveling to different spots in the country is prohibitive, or the scheduling of multiple visits is just not feasible, UVisit is a great resource for students. Nearpod is a super cool presentation tool. Nearpod has now added a virtual reality component to their engaging lessons. With Nearpod VR, students can experience the world through virtual field trips to faraway places. ThingLink is another favorite online tool. It now has virtual reality lessons that you can access from the mobile app. With ThingLink's VR experience, students can transport to ecosystems around the world. New York Times VR is an easy-to-use app with dynamic content. The totally free New York Times VR app for iOS and Android devices lets viewers experience the sights and sounds of places all around the world. Discovery Channel VR is another awesome virtual reality tool. The folks at the Discovery Channel have loaded this app with lots of great content. There are adventure experiences like deep sea diving and mountain biking, and opportunities to see endangered species in action. If you or your students are fans of Discovery Channel programming, you'll love the content from shows like Mythbusters and Survivor Man. Thanks for listening to my post, 5 apps to use with Google Cardboard. You can find me and this post on ClassTechTips.com, or you can connect with us on Twitter at ClassTechTips.
Thank you again, Monica. And be sure to check out ClassTechTips.com, and also be sure to connect with Monica on Twitter. Her handle is ClassTechTips. And of course, be sure to pick up her book, Deeper Learning with QR Codes and Augmented Reality, a scannable solution for your classroom. Again, links to all of this will be in the show notes at chrisnessy.com/70. And that's this episode's EdTech recommendation. Sit back, relax, and this is the meat and potatoes of this episode, my conversation with Katie Ann Wilson. And if you've ever thought about using augmented reality in your classroom, well, here you go, because she literally wrote the book, and I'm very, very excited to share my conversation with her, with you, right now. And now joining me on the podcast via Skype, I'm pleased to introduce to you Katie Ann Wilson. Katie Ann is a lifelong learner who brings a passion for educational technology with over 13 years of experience under her belt. She is known worldwide through presentations as the go-to person for augmented reality in education. She's the founder of the Augmented Reality Google Plus Education Group, and she is also the founder of the Twitter chat #AR for Learning, and that's the number 4. She recently published a how-to guide for using augmented reality in the classroom titled Keys to Unlocking the Universe via Augmented Reality. And she also runs a really cool blog called The Diary of the Techie Chick, which has generated many new ideas about educational technology. Welcome to the House of EdTech, Katie Ann.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here and an honor. I love listening to all the podcasts that you've generated throughout the year or years. You've been doing it for a while.
Yeah, I'm coming up on 3 years. That's very exciting. But you are the augmented reality guru in education. As you just said before I hit record, you literally wrote the book on it. How did you get into augmented reality, virtual reality, and education? So let's go.
In about 2010, I attended a conference where the keynote speaker just briefly showed Erasmus, and during his keynote didn't have a session on it, didn't explain how he did it, and that caught my attention. I'm like, whoa, go back. I want to learn how to do that. So I literally ran home and taught myself how to create augmented reality using some of the online tools. And I showed it to my kids in the classroom, and it just blew their minds. So I started playing around and finding the different companies that were offering augmented reality. And one of the first companies that was the first company that I saw that had really engaging interactive content. And with augmented reality, for me, it has to be interactive. It can't be like a QR code where you scan it and it takes you to a website, or it just loads a picture. It needs to be interactive. And the company that I started with was Quiver. It used to be Collar, and they got name changed, so now it's Quiver. And they do augmented coloring pages. And I teach middle school. And the kids just went bonkers for that. So I had to figure out a way to incorporate it into my lessons, to use those triggers so I could keep them engaged and keep them, on task and make learning fun and bring learning to life. And so I started using coloring pages as writing prompts, because I teach a lot of keyboarding skills, and writing is, a keyboarding skill. So kids type out their stories and experiences with the augmented reality. So this really brought learning to life for them, and it kept them engaged. And they're middle school kids. And middle school kids, you think, okay, you're going to give them a coloring page, they're just going to, not handle it very well. Well, they loved it. They colored, so they had to color right in the lines, and they had to be so neat. And because they owned it. It was theirs. And once they brought it to life, then they started taking pictures with it, and they became part of their story, and they really owned their writing. And instead of having kids ask me how many paragraphs I need to write about, how many sentences need to be in each paragraph, I got quality writing, and they didn't ask me anymore. They just start writing because it triggered such a great creative imagination for them that I didn't have to provide anything other than just a coloring page and, little hints, say, hey, what happens in this page? What can go further? What do you think might happen if there's some magic behind it? And then kids just went crazy. And I've been doing that since 2010, and it's 2016, and I have kids coming up going, Mrs. Wilson, when can we do it? We want to do it now. So it's become a tradition now in my school, and the kids really, really enjoy it. And that's just with coloring pages. Since then, companies have popped up, and they have augmented flashcards that are interactive. Octagon has some animals, space, and foods they're interactive. So it's not just like a QR code where it's going to take you to a website with interesting. It's going to be interactive where kids have to engage in it, and they get the information, and things move, and it's animated. That's really cool. Pop Our Toys has interactive augmented posters, puzzles, books. Carlson Books have a lot of augmented, like Ice Storm, Ice Science, which have augmented parts within the book, and you have to scan the triggers inside the book. And when I refer to a trigger, and I say it's like a QR code because people know how to scan a QR code because that became a norm. Triggers are images or objects that you can scan with a certain app, and you have to use their app because they own the content. With QR codes, they don't own the content, they're just redirecting you, so that the company owns the content that you're scanning, and then you have to use their app to access it. So you're going to their servers, their webs, their content.
So there's no universal augmented reality app. Everything is proprietary.
Right. Which is, copyright, and it costs a lot of money to make some of this augmented content, and all the 3D animations and all the magic and wonder and sounds that go into the augmented digital world. And when I talk about augmented content, that is the digital content that's overlaid on something physical. So it's a layer, a digital layer. So when you scan it, you get the digital content. Depending on what the company is, tells you you'll get that content. Like Pop Our Toys have the posters, and they have like the 8 wonders of the world, the ancient wonders of the world. They have space. They have the periodic table that's interactive, and you can click on it, see the elements and information about the different elements. They also have the presidents and capitals, which is all in a huge, and when I say a poster, I mean huge poster, not an 8x10. It's an actual huge poster, and it's laminated so you can put it on your wall and reuse it and reuse it. It's really awesome. And the apps are free. You have to pay for the poster, but then the app is free. And the same with Octagon's flashcards. You got to pay for the flashcards, but the app is free, and you get an access code to access it. A lot of content from Quiver, the coloring pages, are free because they have companies paying to have the content augmented, such as Toys R Us had a birthday special, and they paid to have the coloring pages augmented. Ford, one of the Ford part of the company's paid, so they have an augmented Ford truck, and I think a van. Mini Cooper has an augmented car. So a lot of the stuff has been paid by other companies and is giving to teachers that content for free. Plus, there's educational content. There's another app for Quiver called Education, and then you pay one fee, and whatever content they made in the educational part you get automatically. So you pay one time, and you get all the new stuff that's coming out. And they have, and they keep adding. It's so wonderful. When I started with them in, 2010 or 2000, it feels like forever. And they tell me they're a startup company, and it literally feels like they've been around forever. They are the augmented company for me. it was 1 or 2 pages. And then all of a sudden they have this huge suite of pages, different sports. They have a world that you can scan, and if you zoom in on it, you see the stars around the Earth. And if you zoom out, you can see the continents, and that does the lights. So it's dark on the continent, and you can see where the bright lights are, where the electricity is used a lot. They also have augmented flags, a volcano that erupts. It's really cool that the stuff that they're coming up with and using in education. And I see it, and I just flip it around and see how I can use it with my students, which started the blog, which started sharing with teachers how I've been using it in the classroom and all the presentations I've presented a lot of places. I also do presentations via Google Hangout or Skype. If I can't physically be there, I connect with teachers that way. And then that spurred last year the Twitter chat AI for Learning. So it's been going on for a year, which has spurred the book because teachers want to know how to use it. They need examples. They want to see it in writing, how I've been using it. So I put together a book, and I'm working on my second book. We'll see how that one goes.
I think that's a nice little piece of insider information right here on the show.
So yeah, the second book is coming. I started doing augmented interactive student notebooks, so now teachers want a book on that. So it's in the works. It's taken me a while to get it together because there's so much content that you can do with student notebooks. You can do a math notebook. You can do a social studies notebook, a language arts. I do it for STEM because I also teach some STEM classes. And you can do it for writing. You can do it for any topic. So it's taken me a little while to pull all that resources together organized for teachers.
So you've given a really nice overview of, from 2010 through to today, and hitting on a bunch of really awesome things that you're doing with augmented reality. Let's go a little deeper. When you discover this, obviously there was something that was sparked in you to say, hey, this is good for kids. This is good for education. It's going to engage my students. And there's so much that happens in education today that engagement seems to be the big key. When you design lessons with augmented reality in mind as what they're going to be experiencing and doing and using, what is the process for you to determine this is going to bring value to my students? What's that process for you?
So when teachers ask me if I could create them a lesson on a certain topic, a key, a benchmark or something, I need to start from there. And then I look around to see what I could do to enhance the lesson, which is how the interactive student notebooks came about. And then I find the tools to match that. So for science, say a volcano unit, kids are learning about the different elements of a volcano. Well, I went looking for that, and Quiver had that for me. So I used that, and I took the coloring sheet and I shrunk it down to like a 4x6 size so it would fit into a student notebook. And then once they, color it and engaged in it, it's interactive. So that's going to keep the kids, one, learning. It has a quiz too. They can do a self-check. So it's interactive. It has a self-check. It gives the information. Boom, I'm done with that. I can move on. Once I assess the kids, I know that they got it because they interacted with it and they learned from it. So I start with, like I said, I need a topic. And then once I have a topic, then I go looking, or I start creating something around it that I know that would be engaging. That'll do a self-check. That's interactive. It has to be interactive before I can move on and say, hey, this is the final product.
For a teacher who is just getting started, because this is, granted, you say, since 2010, but I would say still here in 2016, there are going to be listeners who are like, oh, I've never done this. I'd like to do it. What would be a few recommendations for the teacher who wants to start today to bring AR into their classroom?
they need to start one step at a time, what's comfortable for them. And it really depends on the age level of the kids, too. I am not going to say to a first grade teacher that your kids need to start creating augmented reality. I'm going to say you start with the coloring sheets. I wrote lessons for the daiquiri cubes, the element cubes. I was part of that team, so you can go to the daiquiri website and you can download the lessons from that. And they have elementary and they have middle and then they have high school lessons as well, all focused around those cubes. I also have lessons and ideas on my website. So I'm going to point them to whatever topic that they are teaching. So if they're a language arts teacher, I'm going to point them into that direction depending on the grade level. If they're doing math, I'm going to make sure that I give them stuff that's related to math and their level of students. If they're younger students or low students, if they're doing just need to do flashcards, AR flashcards have simple augmented self-check flashcards that they could put in a student notebook or take home or whatever. If they're doing, say, writing, I definitely do a coloring page. If they just want kids to create their own, once they get past that point, then I would teach them how to use Blip R or Lay R to make their own content. Because even though AR has been around since 2010, not all the content has been built. It's still brand new. We still have to look for it. That's why the companies are coming out, because they see how wonderful and engaging it is. And the need is there. The need is so there to have people guide others in learning it, because it's something that, we didn't grow up with. So we need to know we need others to show us how to use it.
No, if it's new for teachers, it's new for kids. There is a learning curve to that. But I imagine that in your book, Keys to Unlocking the Universe via Augmented Reality, shameless plug from me about your book, I imagine you flatten a lot of that curve and
just because it is new, and I had so many teachers frustrated because they didn't know where to go or what to do. So I gave some examples of how to use them, and I broke it down by levels. Like I did lower level, middle level, and higher level, because our kids are not all there at the same level. Some kids need a little bit more enrichment, and some kids just need to start the basics. So I do have it broken down in that, and I have it broken down into using the augmented flashcards, into the coloring pages, how to use those. There's just so much coming out. I needed a bigger book.
Okay, well then hopefully
that's why there's a second one.
Volume 2. Excellent. So the next thing, again, based on everything that you're sharing, I'm like, oh, I want to ask this. I'm the one who's curious. So in your experience, and again, you're the expert, what is the best lesson and the best experience you've had using AR for instruction?
I invited the preschool class, that happened to be my daughter's class, with my students, and my students took over, and they demonstrated how to use the coloring pages, and they asked the prompts, and they helped the kids write. So it became more of a mentoring and relationship building with younger kids, and everybody, when they left, was smiles and happy, and that I hit it right on the, I didn't, the kids did, hit it right on the nail, because they made the connections, they helped another student, and we had some really fun stories.
Now, on the other side of the coin, and by no means is this a 60 minutes quality interview, but I know I've sat and I've listened to professional development, and I listen to teachers on Twitter and different things I participate in about all the successes. But obviously there had to be some struggle and growth on your part. Can you talk a little bit about your struggles and things you've overcome as you've grown in AR?
I don't have a lot of struggles with the kids. I have a lot of struggles with peers, because they think all I'm doing is having fun. Well, learning should be fun. I teach skill. I don't necessarily teach content. So I'm teaching kids how to use the computers, how to use the different tools on the computer. So when I have a huge bucket of crayons and color pencils and literally a stack of coloring pages in my room, and they're like, what are you doing, just coloring all day? It's like, I get that. I also get, when I do professional development, I get the person in the back that crosses their arm and they're like, this isn't for me, this is just another one thing I had to learn how to do. So I get that little feedback more from my peers than I do from my students. And then, by the way, I do win over those hearts before they leave my session.
I would bet money on that.
Yeah, I said, because coloring is a stress reliever. It really is. You sit down and you just color and talk, the stress goes away. So
if you take out AR, adult coloring books is a big industry right now. It's a big thing.
So, and I don't even approach that it's augmented. If I notice that people are in their room, they're across, they don't want to be there, I don't even start with augmented reality. I play music, I put on the coloring sheets, I put out the crayons, and we just have a conversation as we're coloring. And then I say, oh, by the way, let's scan this like we do a QR code and see what happens. And by the time they leave, they're like eyes big, and they're like, how can I use this? So I tend to win some hearts.
Excellent. Now, again, going back to the beginning of our conversation, you talked about how there are many different options out there for teachers to try and experiment with. What are maybe the top 2 or 3 augmented reality apps that you would recommend a teacher check out?
My top 3, one is the coloring pages from Quiver. The second would be the posters and books from Pop AR Toys. And then my third one would be the interactive flashcards from Octagon.
Do those 3 also allow for creation, or are there other tools that are more towards creating the content?
Those are not for creation. They own the content. They've already made it. For creation, for me, literally, there's only one, which is Blippar.
How do you spell that?
Blippar. And they do have free accounts for teachers. There's a place on their education part of their website that says contact us, and they will set you up an account. Their content will stay live until you kill it. There's no ads for now. I mean, right now it's free, no ads, but who knows in 5 years?
Of course. Now, you also talked about the fact that you've gotten the opportunity to present. So where has AR... Okay, let's answer the question. Because of augmented reality, blank, where is AR taking you?
It's taking me around the world. And usually I'm in my kitchen.
It's a very nice kitchen, folks.
I have literally talked with teachers from around the world, from China, Australia, New Zealand, India, Mexico, Canada, literally all over, Russia, the UK, up in that area. And some of the conversations have been late at night, and some have been really early in the morning. But I will get on. I do Google Hangouts with them, and I record them so that they can go back and watch them. So if they have questions saying, hey, what did she say, or what did she share at that time, they can go back and look at what look at the recording. I'm also have presented at FETC in Florida. I had to cancel TCA due to issues, but I've had lots of requests to present, and it's really hard to pick and choose which ones to go to. ISTE, tons. And I love going to the conferences, because then I get to meet the teachers face to face, and I have lots of conversations. And some of it kind of can be frightening when somebody comes up to you at a restaurant and go, "You're Katie Ann." I'm like, okay. So I'm getting there. I'm getting out there, and I'm finally getting to meet teachers and kind of making the world in my classroom.
That's awesome. I want to do things like that.
Well, I would like to do more.
Katie Ann is also the founder of the hashtag AR for Learning Twitter chat, as we mentioned at the start of this conversation. So, Katie Ann, how did the Twitter chat come about, and when does it take place? How can people get involved, and what are some of the things that you all talk about?
The chat came about a year ago. I started doing Google Hangout with teachers. We called it Let's Talk AR. It was just easier for me to get on Twitter and talk instead of trying to organize a Google Hangout for everybody to connect. And I can only connect with 10 people. With Twitter, I can connect unlimited. So we started AR for Learning. We brainstormed that hashtag, and it just grew. We meet every Thursday at 8 p.m. Central Time. Sometimes I might do a Google Hangout at the same time, just depending if I don't have kids in the house. It's not easy to do it when you have a 16-year-old and an 8-year-old and a husband and an 18-year-old. They like to hop on and make fun of me. So sometimes I'll do that, and I'll have a Twitter chat at the same time so that people can connect with me face-to-face, and also via Twitter. And we have different topics. This month in September, we've done augmented lit trips. We're doing an augmented interactive math notebook. I talk about how to use augmented reality with younger learners. Let's see, we do just different topics, how to use augmented reality with math, language arts, social studies, the arts, you name it, we've talked about it. And we meet, and it lasts about an hour, and we just literally have fun, and we just chat and share ideas, and other people that are using augmented reality share their ideas too, and if people need help, I'm there to help.
In addition to the fact that like you host the chat, besides yourself, who are some other people, other educators who are passionate about augmented reality and education that you're now connected with? Who are your AR peeps?
I have a tribe.
Okay.
EdTech Amber is one of my biggest ones. First at bat, and that's Terry. She says I've taught her everything, but I learned just as much from her as she's learning from me. Nick, I can't think of how he spells his last name. I just know them by their hashtags or by their Twitter handles.
Yeah, throw those out there. Throw them out there.
And then let's see, Peggy George, she is amazing. She's always been there supporting me.
She's a good friend of mine too.
She's amazing. I want to get her on a Google Hangout and talk with her, but she always just types. I'm like, come on, Peggy, join me.
I'm on a very short list of people
days.
who have gotten her to actually come on and do video and chat, so I'm a pusher.
And Jean, she is great. She's in New York, and to teach in New York, like in New York, is amazing. And just to be in an inner city, I appreciate those people, because I'm in rural Kansas, and it's nothing like being in Chicago or New York or any of those big cities. So I have a huge tribe, and they support me, and they're the ones that cheer me on and say, hey, you can do this. They're the ones that wanted the book, and I think they were the first ones to purchase the book too. So
since I kind of put you on the spot with like name dropping, I'll have you email me some of their Twitter handles, and I can include them in the show notes. So that wasn't fair on my part.
I just start typing, they're in my list, so I don't even have to really type out their Twitter names anymore. I just click on them.
You're also a blogger, and you are an aspiring podcaster. So your blog is The Diary of a Techie Chick. So when I send people there, what type of content will they find?
They will find content that's related to ed technology, between augmented reality, ways to use the different tools like Bunsy, Symbaloo. Those are some of my go-to, like Edmodo, go-to tools that I use in my classroom. I also put some little tidbits about me because I try to let people know who I am, so that they know I'm an actual person and, I'm actually going through these things. So I blogged about my son going off to college. I don't think he appreciated it, but
and he doesn't have a say in the matter.
No, he's starting a blog, so I inspire all sorts of people, either blogging or augmented reality, and I never know who I touch until they tell me. So I've touched a lot of people. I did have a campaign last year that I was trying to reach 1 million students through augmented reality, and I had them fill out a form every time they had somebody, try augmented reality with their students, and by the end of the year, I had reached over 2 million students via augmented reality.
I'm just going to repeat that. So you reached not 1, but 2 million students through your teaching and connecting with educators and promoting this is good for kids, and off they went.
Yes.
That's phenomenal.
So I want to reach more.
Hence the second book, forthcoming podcast. Now, since I'm a podcaster, do you want a podcast about augmented reality, or is there another passion that you have?
I think I want to do it on EdTech because that's my passion. Augmented reality is my niche. That's what I'm really good at. But EdTech, I got my master's in EdTech before EdTech was a word. So it was called computer technology, way back when. Our classroom computer technology. So EdTech has been my thing ever since I started teaching. I've never done anything other than EdTech. So computer science, coding, all that is me.
And you've demonstrated that thoroughly. And there is plenty of room for more EdTech podcasts. So it's not competition, it's cooperation. Before I let you go, where can people connect with you, and what is your preferred method that they reach out and say, hey, Katie Ann, I've got more questions, help me?
A lot of people connect with me via Twitter. I'm Katie Ann _76. But some people don't like Twitter. So I do have a website that has a contact me feature on it, and it'll come directly to my phone, which is KatieAnnWilson.com. I had to think. And I also have people contact me via my blog, so Diary of the Techie Chick. So those 3 places, if you want to reach out and connect with me, that's great. I usually carry my phone with me, so when the message goes off, unless I'm really, really busy, I try to respond pretty quickly.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here on the House of EdTech, Katie Ann.
Thank you for having me.
Again, super huge thank you to Katie Ann for being on the podcast with me today. Make sure that you check out everything that she's doing. Go visit KatieAnnWilson.com. Go visit DiaryOfATechieChick.com. And also be sure to check out her book. And hey, pick up a copy, Keys to Unlocking the Universe via Augmented Reality. Links to everything will be in the show notes for this episode. Again, chrisnessy.com/70. Now, let's meet this episode's House of EdTech VIP. Before I announce this episode's VIP, I gotta say, as I sit here recording this, I couldn't have put this show together any better. To have Monica Burns talk about Google Cardboard, which is a virtual reality. We just had the great conversation with Katie Ann Wilson about augmented reality. And the VIP fits right in with both of those because he's an individual who is into an alternate reality where you can basically do anything that you want and create worlds. So I don't know if that gives it away, but congratulations to this episode's VIP, Mr. Mark Grindell. That's right, Mark Grindell, one of the awesome supporters of the podcast. Mark has been teaching for 11 years at the elementary level. The past 9 have been in the Woodbury City Public School District in New Jersey, where he teaches 5th grade. During that time, Mark has earned a Master's in Educational Leadership, and he is currently enrolled in Capella University's Doctor of Education program, where he's going to receive his educational doctorate as a teacher leader of digital transformation. But where he fits into the theme of today's show, earlier this year in 2016, Mark co-founded a Twitter chat, MinecraftED, #MinecraftED, and it is a great chat that you need to check out if you are into Minecraft and Minecraft in education. The chat takes place on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and you need to connect with Mark Grindell. He is on Twitter at mgrindell, MGRUNDEL. Check out his chat, connect with him, and talk about Minecraft and education in general. He's a fantastic guy, and of course I thank him for being an awesome supporter. And congratulations again, Mark. You are a House of EdTech VIP. And that's going to do it for episode 70 of the House of EdTech podcast. Thank you again for as long as you've been listening to this show. I appreciate it. And if not for you, I don't know where I would be. So thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. And thank you for sharing. Also, thank you to summerpd.com for supporting this episode. Again, you can go to summerpd.com, get all the courses, bundle them together, use the promo code House of EdTech, save yourself some money on some at your own pace, on your own time learning. Keep the conversation going. Visit the website, chrisnessy.com/70. That's the show notes for this episode, and it's going to contain all the links, all the names of the people. Katie Ann did send me all those Twitter names, so it's all there, everything we talked about today. And special thank you to Monica Burns for taking the time to record this episode's EdTech Thought. Really appreciate it, Monica. Thank you so much. And be sure to go to classtechtips.com to check out all of Monica's great content. And of course, I'd love to connect with you and hear your thoughts on the information and resources in this episode and every episode that you listen to. Go to chrisnessy.com, click Share Feedback. That's going to give you my email and all the ways that you can connect with me. The fastest of which is Twitter. I am Mr. Nessy on Twitter, MRNESI, and just use the hashtag House of EdTech so I see those tweets. If you enjoy the podcast, and of course you do, I'd like you to do a couple things. Number one, go tell somebody else about this podcast who you think would enjoy it and find value in it. Word of mouth is the best way to share this podcast and any podcast that you love and listen to. Number two, I would really appreciate a rating and a review of the podcast in iTunes. Your rating and honest review help keep the House of EdTech front and center for others to discover and enjoy. And I'm actually still looking for that first international review. So I have all my reviews so far from the United States. I'm looking for that first review from outside the US. So are you going to be the first person to do that? I challenge you. And the last way you can help support the show is by becoming an awesome supporter. You can go to chrisnessy.com/awesome, and that's going to tell you about how you can support the show through patreon.com. The next episode of the podcast, House of EdTech number 71, that's going to be released on October 9th, 2016. Until next time, thanks for joining me, and remember, you know what, I really can't end it right now. I still have like 25 seconds left, so real quick. Also make sure you remember that the Smackdown is coming. So remember, get your submissions in. And remember, using technology isn't difficult. Just give it a try. The House of EdTech is a proud member of the Education Podcast Network. The Education Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. For more, go to edupodcastnetwork.com.
edtech.com.